Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I just want to remind everybody to sign up for my newsletter if you want to receive free brushes, free art resources, or be able to gain access to exclusive mini tutorials via my Facebook group. And you can access all of that just by signing up to this tutorial's free brush pack and confirm your email once you receive it. For today's tutorial, all you need is an A4 canvas in Procreate, and we will be drawing this piece of sushi together today. So you want to start with a black color and go to your sushi brush pack, which you can access in the description. And we're just going to start off by drawing a circle, and then we're going to go into the Liquify tool to alter this shape so it isn't a perfect circle. So next we want to create another layer that's going to be sitting on top of this current layer that we have. We're going to bring it down below so that it is sitting underneath because we want this to be our outline layer. Mainly because we're going to be drawing these chopsticks, and the chopsticks do need to sit behind this piece of sushi. Because the chopsticks are sitting behind, we want to take our eraser brush and we want to erase pieces of the chopsticks from the inside of the sushi. So it looks like they are grabbing the sushi from the sides. So I have included not only a brush pack for this drawing, but also the color palette. So create another layer. This is going to be on top, and we're going to start drawing out the components of the inside of the sushi. So access your color palette and pick the green color. And this will be our avocado in the middle. Next, we're going to create another layer because we want each individual piece that's going to be inside the sushi to be a different layer so that we can easily manipulate and alter the different components to this drawing. So this will be our salmon, and we're going to just draw another longer rectangle right beside our avocado. Alrighty, we're going to draw make another layer to which we are going to start filling in our sushi. So you want to take a gray color because we don't really want it to actually just be white. We're trying to create more detail with all the rice. So I didn't really find any other way than to use a soft brush and go in and actually increase the size of my brush and my opacity, and actually just to draw around these other pieces that are in the middle. I tested out a few different ways. I felt like this is probably just the easiest for everybody, and it was the easiest for me too. So just color around everything, and you can easily stay inside the lines because at the end of the day, this is a separate layer, so it will make it really easy to erase this gray part if you need to. But just try to get as close as you can to the outside of the sushi, or that black line there, and then also the inside of the sushi. So on this same layer, we just want to take a darker gray color, and we are going to start building out some texture just by using our number 9 brush and creating some dots And my goal with this was trying to create a bit more shadow behind the rice layer that we'll make in a little bit here, but just to add a little bit more depth. So right now we're adding in texture to create depth by using and applying shadow. Next, I take the eraser brush and I create a little swoop. You'll notice at the bottom here, just to erase part of this, because we're going to actually fill in behind this gray part in black. And it's just representing where the sushi is actually getting like wrapped in, or the seaweed part of the sushi, I should say, the outside. And what you'll notice I'm doing now is actually taking or erasing part of this gray part that we created and only really making little round like bumps. The goal here was because sushi, or like the rice, is going to look bumpy, right? It's not all one cohesive shape essentially. So feel free to erase some of the gray part, because what we're going to do after is fill in the black part. Perfect. So we'll go to layer 1, and what we're going to do is take our black, and then all we need to do, because we've got a perfect circle already, see how easy that was? We just color dropped the black into layer 1. And if you notice any little black outlines or any white specks or anything like that, feel free to fill those in. But alrighty, next we're going to create another layer. This is going to be our rice layer. So take an off-white color. You don't want it to be totally white, because we're going to save that for a bit later. But essentially, just take either, you could take the fine tipped brush, or you could even use your number 9 as well, whatever you think looks better. I just started with our Inktober brush that is in the sushi pack that you have likely downloaded. So just start drawing out the rice. There was no better way to do this than for me to just draw it out. I wish that there was. I probably could have duplicated the layer, but I felt like each side of the sushi, it just made more sense to draw it out. And it's more fun too. We're drawing at the end of the day, right? So just draw out the different grains, and you'll see how I add depth and dimension to the grains in a little bit. So after that looks decently solid, I'm going to alpha lock this new rice layer. We're going to take our number 9 brush, our soft brush, and we're going to take the white color and we're going to try to add in like some highlights. So mind you, once you alpha lock, only the layer that we have alpha locked will be accessible for us to draw on. So feel free to go wild and just, put your pen wherever you feel like needs a little bit of highlight on the rice. Please do not get rid of all of the previous color we used because we don't want it to be completely flat. We really don't want that. Just choose like little portions of each individual grain to kind of add a little highlight to. Great. And now we're going to do the exact same thing, but with a shadow. So we're going to go in and we're going to choose some areas to add in a little bit of shadow to the rice as well. Great. So next, we're actually going to go on our top layer again and make sure it's not alpha locked because it's not going to let you draw outside, but we do want this part to be on this top layer. So we're going to add soy sauce dripping to this piece of sushi in a minute. And part of the sushi needs to have some of the soy sauce soaked into the bottom part of the rice. This is optional. You don't have to draw this part, of course, if you feel like this is a bit too complicated, but it's really not as hard as it looks, I promise. So we want to go to the layer below that as well and add some darkness to it just so that it kind of shines through and already shows like the new texture we just added, see? So doing it just like that. So really just you want to pay attention to which layer I'm on and what color I'm choosing. And I feel like it should give you some insight into what I'm trying to do in terms of adding texture and depth to the piece of sushi. So now I want to add in some highlight layers. So I feel like honestly, all art really feels like to me is just layer after layer after layer, having a lot of patience, going in with shadows, then going in with highlights, and going with shadows again, and going in with highlights. So that's what this is as well. Great, now we're going to our avocado layer. We're going to alpha lock that as well so we don't go outside the lines. And we currently have our number 9 brush selected, and we're just going to choose a lighter color just to add some highlight to this piece of avocado. And we'll do the same with a darker color as well. So I switch over to the only grainy brush that I added in to this palette or this brush pack for you, just because I wanted to give texture to this avocado, and I end up using it on the sushi seaweed like wrapped around as well, because I felt like it added to it and it made it look realistic. So you just want to take that color with a lighter color, and then I know for a fact, so this is the heavy pastel that we are going to use for our texture on our avocado. And now I go in with a darker color. Even sometimes when my colors are on the palettes I give you guys, please play around with them, because sometimes they don't even look like perfect to me, and they look great while I'm drawing it, and then sometimes they don't always look as good. So please be creative and take the color palette. It's really easy to change like kind of the tone of like a green, for example. It's not too difficult. So feel free to play around with it. Now what I've done is I've actually just held down that finger, this what I call the smudger brush, and I held it down and it just automatically grabbed the grainy brush I was using as my other brush there. So I'm going back and forth with light and dark with this new grainy brush just to add some texture, and then I go over it using the smudger brush with the same brush. All right, it's time to now add in some depth to our salmon. So we want to alpha lock this layer as well. I believe I have the salmon and the tuna on the same layer, which is totally fine, because I feel like they're not They're a bit more closer in color, so it's fine if a little bit goes over. It's not the end of the world. But we're trying to add in a bit of shadow in like a few different sections of our salmon. And we want to start with a mid-tone there, and then we're going to add in some more depth to create some more shadow at the bottom. So yeah, just pay attention to where I'm adding in these darker versus lighter colors. And what you'll notice here in a minute, I am just using the number 9 soft brush just to do some of this shading. But what you'll notice is I actually go in with the silk brush and create more of like a texture to the salmon too. So you'll see what I do in just a minute here. I also go in with the fine tip brush because, as we know, salmon has that interesting texture. It's got lines through it, so we add that in too. So for this part, I've taken the fine tipped Inktober brush. We've got pure white as it goes, and we're adding in little dots, and we're trying to make it look like it's glistening, or like the salmon has got a bit of reflection going on. So you want to add that in and just make it really nice and light. You don't need to be too heavy-handed on this. Really light-handed, just adding in some dot texture to certain areas of the salmon. Okay, so next we're going to add another layer. This is going to be our soy sauce layer. It's going to sit at the bottom piece of the, or bottom half of the sushi. And I want you to take a dark gray color. So something like this, it should be in your palette, but if not, just take a dark gray. And I want you to take the selection tool, and I want you to draw around the sushi so you can see it highlighted there, and then just draw like a little drip at the bottom. Just one. It can be any size you want. And don't go fully up on the other side. So you'll see the shape in just a minute. So all you need to do with the selection tool is click freehand, make sure it's on plus, and color fill at the bottom there. And then once you tap that little gray dot, which is just the starting point where you started the selection, it will fill it in for you. And you have this nice new layer with the color that you chose as well. So we're going to take our soft brush and we're going to darken this up. Make sure you alpha lock this layer. Make sure your opacity is at 100%. And we're going to draw a fun little pattern in the bottom of this drip, essentially. So you might be thinking, why is my soy sauce gray? Well, it's actually a reflection. So keep the gray. And what you want to do is add in some more light, and just pay attention to where I'm adding this. Add in some light near the top and the bottom part of this gray area. And what we'll do is we're actually going to add in a dark orange color where that little drip is, to signify that it is in fact not fully black. It's just simply the reflection of the soy sauce. So what I've done here too is I'm taking the Liquify tool again on our soy sauce layer, and I'm giving it a bit more momentum because it almost like pushes. When you do that with when you're using the Liquify tool, it actually like creates almost like a liquid effect when you're pulling or pushing it, which I like. So We're just intensifying it just so the drip's a little bit more prominent and there's a little bit more room for coloring. But what I do want you to pay attention to is making sure there's no like weird hard edges. You do want it to be kind of more seamless, like it is just dripping from the sushi, you know? So just pay attention to that part. But also, something to keep in mind when you are using the Liquify tool, you cannot have your layer on alpha lock because it just won't go anywhere. So make sure you take off alpha lock before you want to use the Liquify tool. Great. So for this part, I start with this brush, but I actually want you to take your silk brush because that's what I end up choosing. I regretted this immediately. But after you have that red color where you have the drip, take your silk brush, take a darker brown color, and then just start swiping it down just like that. And take that same silk brush into your smudger's brush just by holding down the smudge tool. And then I want you to pull and push a little bit on that drip. Great. So next what we want to do is we're going to alpha lock our first layer. We're going to take our heavy pastel to create some texture on the seaweed skin on the outside. So we're just going to increase the size of our brush and just do a swipe. Something similar like that. I clearly didn't like the very first one. So I brought down the opacity, still thought that was too intense, and did that. And I was like, oh, perfect. That's kind of what I wanted. Something subtle, but just to give it a little more texture. Next, I go to our chopstick layer. I alpha lock this. I choose our silk brush and I choose a gray color and I do one swipe down the chopstick and I hold my pen so that it makes a perfect line. And I do the same thing on the other side, and it literally gave my chopsticks like the perfect amount of shine and depth without doing anything. I was like, oh, this is amazing. Perfect. We're going to go back to our soy sauce layer. And this is me just tweaking things and noticing things that I like or don't like. So I wanted to blend that little corner there. I felt like it looked a little bit too harsh and weird. So I changed it and I took one of our soft brushes and just kind of blended that in a little bit more. I also went back to the avocado layer with the soft brush because I felt like it was looking a little too light. We needed to add a little bit more shadow. So next what you'll see me do is I go back onto this rice layer and I go back and forth with adding more shadow and more rice grains because I wasn't totally happy with how this looked. So what I wanted to do was just add in a little bit more depth to some of the areas. So all you need to do is go onto your rice layer, take off the alpha lock, just be very light-handed with your number 9 brush with a darker brown color and just go to different little pockets and darken some of the areas. Lastly, or almost lastly, I wanted to add some pizzazz to this drawing, so I took the background color and I actually made it pink because pink is my favorite color, in case you didn't know, but I also thought it was very fitting and it looks really good with this piece of sushi. So feel free to pick a different color background. I thought pink looked really nice. All right, we are rearing the end of this tutorial. I just want to thank you all for watching if you guys made it this far. If you want to see more art tutorials like this, please remember to subscribe to my channel and also leave any comments or thoughts or opinions in the comment section below. Thanks.